The night sea is wild. Waves rise like black walls, crashing down with the sound of thunder. The ship shakes and twists, fighting to stay afloat. Rain hits hard, cold and endless. Men run across the deck, shouting, slipping, pulling ropes with bleeding hands. Their eyes are wide, not from courage but from fear. Down below it's a world of darkness. Water drips from above. The air smells of salt and sweat. Wood bends and cracks with every wave. There's no silence here, only noise, motion, and dread. And still, in this storm, some men try to sleep. They lie on rough cloth tied between wooden beams, swinging back and forth like toys. Every crash from above could be the one that ends it all. But they close their eyes anyway, not because they want to, but because they must. Out here, even sleep is an act of survival. When the sea finally calms, the ship looks half alive, sails torn, wood soaked, men too tired to speak. They've been out here for weeks, maybe months. No land, no soft ground, no real rest. A pirate ship was never built for comfort. Every inch was used for work, for ropes, barrels, gunpowder. There was no space for peace. Below deck, the ceiling was so low a man could barely stand. The air was heavy with smoke from the cooking fire and the smell of wet clothes. The only light came from small oil lamps that swung gently with the sea. Rats ran across the floorboards. The sound of water hitting wood never stopped. Even when the storm was gone, the waves kept rolling and the ship never truly stood still. This was where they slept. This was home. A world that rocked, creaked, and whispered like it was alive. Every night the same thought followed them into the dark. Will this ship still be floating when we wake up? Sleep on a pirate ship was never real sleep. It was waiting, eyes closed, mind awake, hoping the sea would spare them for one more night. Even when the storm passed, the ocean never stopped moving. The ship rose and fell endlessly, each motion stronger than the last. The floor tilted, barrels rolled, ropes swung from the ceiling like snakes. Every sound carried through the wood. The groan of the ship, the splash of waves, the whisper of wind through torn sails. There was no silence, not for a single moment. Below deck, space was tight. Men slept shoulder to shoulder, soaked in sweat and seawater. The air was hot, thick, and hard to breathe. Sometimes rats crawled over their legs, looking for crumbs of food. Sometimes water leaked in from the cracks above, dripping onto their faces as they tried to rest. Even in calm weather, the sea was unpredictable. A single wave could slam the ship hard enough to throw a man out of his hammock. And when the waves grew wild again, the bed swung so violently that pirates tied themselves in, afraid of being hurled across the room. Then came the fear, quiet but constant. They all knew stories of men who never woke up, ships that vanished overnight, a storm that started without warning, so they never slept deeply. Their eyes closed, but their hands stayed near their weapons. Their minds drifted between dream and dread. For a pirate, sleep wasn't rest. It was surrender, a small dangerous moment of trust in a sea that wanted them dead. But somehow, they did sleep. Not for long, not deeply, but enough to keep breathing, enough to wake and fight again. Pirates learned to rest in ways only the sea could teach. Their beds weren't beds at all. They were pieces of rough cloth, tied to wooden beams on both ends, swinging freely like cradles made for grown men. They called them hammocks. At first glance, they looked fragile, unsafe. But in truth, they were genius. When the ship moved, the hammock moved with it, matching every rise and fall of the waves. Instead of being thrown around, the body stayed still, floating gently in rhythm with the sea. It wasn't comfort, it was survival. And it worked. The Royal Navy later copied this idea, because no one understood the ocean's motion better than pirates. But even the hammock had rules. You couldn't sleep straight or you'd roll out and hit the floor. You had to lie at an angle, forming a diagonal line that let the fabric wrap around you like a cocoon. It kept you steady. It kept you alive. Still, the danger never left. A sudden storm could send a man swinging into a wall or beam. So pirates tied themselves in. A rope over the chest, a knot near the waist. a small insurance against being thrown to death in the dark. Above deck, some took turns sleeping near the helm. When the sea was calm and the wind soft, the captain would allow short rests on the deck, under the open sky. Men would lie on wet planks, listening to the waves like a lullaby, their hands still close to their weapons. The stars above were the only calm thing they knew. Down below, they created small rhythms, small rituals, 2 watches, half the crew awake, half asleep, changing places every few hours. That way, someone was always ready to act if the sea turned. It wasn't luxury, but it gave them order, a heartbeat in chaos. Some pirates used tricks to quiet their minds. Old sailors said humming helped, soft, low songs that blended with the ocean's voice. Others whispered prayers to the sea itself, asking it to spare their dreams. Some carried tiny charms, a tooth, a coin, a lock of hair, tucked under their shirts for luck, and food mattered too. They learned not to eat heavy meals before lying down. Hard bread, salted fish, dried fruit, it was all they had, but they took it carefully. An empty stomach was better than a twisted one when the ship began to roll. They also learned to listen, not to the storms, but to the ship. Each sound told them something. A deep groan meant the hull was holding. A sharp crack meant danger. If the noises stayed steady, they could rest a little easier. Over time, these men became part of the sea itself. Their bodies adjusted to the motion. Their minds learned to sleep through fear. The rocking that once felt violent began to feel almost gentle, a cruel sort of comfort given by the same force that could kill them. Out there, sleep wasn't rest. It was resilience. A moment to gather strength before the next wave, the next storm, the next fight. For pirates, sleep wasn't something they earned. It was something they stole. A fragile breath between chaos and survival. For pirates, sleep wasn't something they earned. It was something they stole. A fragile breath between chaos and survival. And even when their eyes finally closed, the sea never truly let them go. Its motion stayed inside them, in their dreams, in their bones, whispering, rocking, reminding them who was in control. Days blended together. Gray skies, gray water, gray faces. The same sounds, the same smell, the same hunger. Sleep was the only escape they had, but even that betrayed them. Some dreamed of land, warm sun, soft beds, the smell of bread. Others dreamed of drowning. The line between both was thin. In the darkness below deck, whispers filled the silence. Stories, songs, lies, anything to remind themselves they were still human. A man would tell a tale about home, about a woman he'd left behind. Another would laugh, though no one knew if it was real or just habit. The sea had taken much, but it hadn't taken their voices. Not yet. When one of them couldn't take it anymore, when sleep turned to madness, the others stayed close. They knew what it meant to be trapped inside your own mind while the world rocked around you. Sometimes they'd hum together, quiet and slow, until the man finally closed his eyes. Out there, under endless waves and endless sky, sleep wasn't peace. It was mercy, short, fragile, and never enough.